One of the challenges I throw out to everybody who's on this thing is to write down the word employee and write down the word entrepreneur and put them with a column type format, right? At the top of the page, put a line down between them. And then what I would want you to do is write down every word that to you describes an employee personally, whatever that means to you. What does an employee mean to you? And then what I would do is have you write down every word that associates with entrepreneur, right? What are the words that resonate with you? And I would tell you to go with where your spirit, your heart, your soul, your instincts are, looking at that thing saying, I'm good with the employee. I love the employee part because this is what it provides. Or, man, the entrepreneur is exciting to me. And it gets me, my juices going. And if that's the case, what could I create in this environment today? What have I been given this opportunity to look for, right? Is what blessing will come?
Welcome back to another episode of the Who You Know Show podcast, where what you know is important, but who you know can make all the difference in your business, career, relationships, and life. My name is Trevor Houston, and on this show, you'll learn the strategy, grit, and mindset it takes to overcome obstacles so you can level up in your career, recover your cash flow, and live the life of purpose that God intended for you. Don't forget to look at the mic drop moments time-stamped in the show notes below. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, make sure to pay it forward, subscribe, and leave an honest review so we can improve. Thanks for listening. My name is Trevor Houston, and please enjoy this episode of the Who You Know Show.
He's the managing partner of the Dallas-Fort Worth General Office of New York Life Insurance Company. And his objective is the continued dedication to hiring and developing capable men and women from all backgrounds who can provide effective and innovative solutions for the problems people and businesses face. Please give a warm welcome for Mike Scovel.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Very happy to be here.
We're excited to have you here. Oh, I'm so excited. So I was reading your bio and going back through your story and stuff like that. And you started with the company at a very early age, 22?
22. Yeah.
Wow.
Again, it was just one of those things where coming out of college, I actually hadn't even graduated, but I was just on the verge of graduation. And
Which college, Mike?
I went to Fresno State. It was a great school, great town. I really liked Fresno. And it was where, obviously, I got my start with the company and was an advisor for a couple of years and then really felt led to move more into a management role. And I would not say leadership role because both are leadership, right? Advisors, we have the same title for advisors as we would a manager, and that is everybody in the office is a leader. And it just depends on who you're working with and leading. And for advisors, it's their clients, right? They're leading so many people in this community. In fact, our advisors have far more of they're shepherding a far bigger flock than the managers are, because ultimately we have advisors that are helping thousands of clients reach the goals that they've actually set out to reach and provide for their families. And it's really a powerful position to be in. So
What was it like for you to get started at such an early age, fresh out of college?
Yeah.
And was there any fears, anxieties, or were you just, this is what I want to do my whole life?
yeah, I did what you have. I grew a beard. Yeah. So at 22, I put a beard on and I had glasses just like yours, but they didn't have a prescription. They were just glass.
So was that to make you look older and more distinct?
Yeah. I look really young at 22. So I figured, and it was, that's probably an insecurity issue. It was not real. And in fact, it wasn't until I was probably in the business for about a year and a half where one client who was probably 65 years old was commenting, and he mentioned my age, but he was like, the reason I'm working with you is because of your age. He goes, I don't want anybody my age. They'll be dead when I need my stuff. I want your age so that you're still going to be around for my kids and my grandkids. And I was like, that makes sense, right?
I had that same fear.
Yeah.
Because I got into the industry when I was 27, 28, 27.
Yeah.
So I remember that thinking, okay, I've got to talk to people about money and finances and somebody who may be like a baby boomer or something like that. And it's, what is this kid going to teach me about? Right. So I remember having those fears, but that's in your own head.
What was your motivation for getting into the business? What was your why?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I did enjoy financial problem solving. I thought it was an interesting concept. But I would say it was probably more to do with the fact of just relating with people. And it's funny because I'm not an extrovert. So again, I think most people would think that an advisor or someone in management would have to be an extrovert, like the life of the party, walk in and dominate a room. And I am the opposite. If there's a Cowboys game on, I'd rather just go in a corner and watch the game and My wife will work the room and I would just love to just be like, oh, just let me sit and have some space. But when I'm working with people, it's different, right? It's the interaction, the one-on-one. I would say I'm much more into one-on-one conversations and really in-depth getting to know someone versus literally just connecting with people for connecting's sake, right? Yeah. You don't have to be, and again, I don't want to speak specifically to the financial services business because I think that's a misrepresentation. Because I don't think that's the end all job. As I speak to this industry and the things that are positive about it, I think that you'll find that in many industries. So if some of the things that I'm saying resonate and you're like, yeah, that's kind of me, or that's what I'm looking for, it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be on the financial services side. It could be in other arenas that have similar career trajectories or opportunities.
It's more of just an entrepreneurial, like owning your own destiny. You're in control. Mark and I, we're in control of every day. And I love it.
Yeah.
No one sets my clock for me. I don't have to get up. I don't have to go to work, but I do anyway. And what's actually funny about it is I work harder for myself than I will for someone else. I still put in 12-hour days. I don't have to.
Yeah.
I don't, but I do because no one's telling me when to start and when to stop.
And what to do while you're doing it.
Yeah.
How to design it.
And I think there's something that's gratifying that the results that you're creating are for you and your family, not necessarily always for something that's not out of your control. So I think that building of something that your investments are ultimately going to pay off long-term, it's a lot easier to put that effort in. And it's so funny because like you said, your work ethic seems to be pretty high. I don't know if I ever worked 12-hour days, so congratulations. But I would tell you, I am a 40-hour work a week guy. Literally, that's what it takes. And never more. But I would tell you that during that 40, I worked. I did my things. I didn't find projects or sidebars or Amazon accounts to look at. I worked during that 40 hours and then I was not working when I was not working. And that's that control, that ability to manage
do it,
is a core component of going back to the entrepreneur mentality. When I was working in high school and in college, I worked at Gap and Van Heusen Gap outlets, and I worked at, and I would tell you, I was in sports, so I would go in and always get a job like off season, and especially around the holidays, you get a job. Football season was ending. I could get a job during Christmas, between seasons, and I'd always get a job pretty easy. And you know how always in any store that's retail, they'll hire a big group for Christmas time, and then they'll fire about 87% of them and keep on just the really good ones. And I would tell you every time, I was the first person that they would call in the office to let me go. Like I was the first one to be like, and I knew it too. I knew that day coming. I'd be like the first one, Mike, good luck, don't come back. It was always,
you're like, all right.
Because I was a terrible employee. I would tell you, I was lazy. I'm the guy that you just had to tell me to do something because I literally would sit there and do nothing. They would walk by and say, fold those shirts. And I'm like, okay, great. I would do it because they would instruct me to. But as soon as that was done, I would be scanning again.
Yeah.
And so I just found very quickly that I needed to find some type of avenue that ultimately my effort would generate results that were going to benefit me. If they had told me, you get a quarter for every shirt you fold, I would have probably been one of their best employees because I would have been motivated to do the actions. Other people are not motivated that way. So I would tell you, some people are really motivated to work because that's just how they're built and they don't have to have compensation.
Right.
There are great teachers that are motivated to work because they're not for comp. It's because of some other benefit or blessing.
My dad.
And so I just wasn't that way. I needed to have some kind of compensation for my results. So I just found a career path that ultimately matched that. Maybe if I got to this point, I know that are finding career paths right now and maybe just coming to the show because they love being with those that are still looking, like the content. But for the vast majority, they're looking. And I would encourage you, one of the things is finding that ideal. So few Americans, and I would say few humans in general, ever find their ideal. And that is that place where they were designed to be in that. They generally just go for whatever comes next or easy, okay? And then they find themselves in it until they're not. And I would tell you, rarely will you be removed from a position that is your ideal. We're oftentimes removed from positions that weren't built for us. And so taking extra time, maybe thinking through, like maybe doing some real inside deep diving into what do I really want to be? What do I want to do?
Yeah.
this is the time to do it. If you're ever going to do it, it isn't.
Yeah.
And to say, am I willing to just work harder in this moment to find that versus maybe not working as hard and maybe just finding what's next.
Yeah.
And that what's next is not always very exciting.
I find it really interesting to say that you're the one that you weren't putting in the effort, like the extra maybe, because, so number one, just to kind of preface this, you are the youngest managing partner in the company's history. You moved up very quickly. It was Fresno.
Yes. I started in Fresno, right? Yeah. And at 27, I was running stock. So I was managing an office where the average tenure of our advisors, their average tenure was 23 years, and I was 27 years old.
Yeah.
So the average person I was probably working with or managing, if you'd want to say it that way, was probably 50, 60, and I was 27. So
the reason I bring that up is because, that path, it is an employee, right? When you're in management, you're W-2'd, you're salaried and in part, but you still get to build. You still get to create, which is what I think is interesting because you did it. You created and you moved on. I think you went to Chicago and built and created processes and strategies and things like that for your teams. So I think that's interesting. What keeps you motivated and drives you?
Yeah, that's a great question.
How do you energize yourself?
Watching the video, I know that some maybe are listening to this on a radio platform or maybe not visual. I'm not sure.
Podcast.
But in the video, it was fun to go back and watch what was played there, which was a recap of the Dallas office. And you saw many of the Dallas management teams speaking.
Yep.
And almost all of them are gone.
They're all gone.
Which is totally sad for us, but a total celebration because none of them are gone to another company. They're all gone, but running their own offices elsewhere.
Yep. Oh.
And the Dallas office that I've been blessed to kind of get to work with, it's it. There's really nowhere to go from here at least as far as a bigger office. That's just not really possible. And so ultimately, I had to change my whole perspective of what would motivate me because it's okay. We've already won the number one offices in the company. We've done things that it's like growing for growing's sake isn't necessarily that exciting. What really started getting me fired up a couple of years ago was really just trying to help people reach their goals and destinations. And I really got very focused on managers leaving our office and taking over their own offices. So a good example would be in the last couple of years, we've had 7 from Dallas.
Shout out Brian Craig.
Brian's in Montana.
Yeah, Brian's in Montana.
We got James
Allen, Wisconsin. Yeah.
We have
a neat business you guys have. Mark, I want to know what got you in there, man.
Got me in?
We asked Mike this stuff. Yeah. What got you started?
Well, the shout out to Brian Craig, because Brian brought both actually Trevor and I on.
Brian brought you guys in.
Brian brought us in. He was my next door neighbor. We moved into the houses next to each other right about the same time. And long story short, he ended up he was my advisor for a while. And I never thought I'd go that direction, but some things in my industry, I was in tech sales, changed. And I took the plunge and have never looked back. And
how long
kudos
have you
to Brian.
Now, how long have you been involved?
Going on 9 years.
Yeah. Wow.
Going on 9 years.
You've been an advisor for 9, right? And that's what the majority of people who do come in this business look for. They look for the advisor role because it has so much independence.
Yeah.
You can be an advisor and also be in media, right?
So Brian Craig also got me into the industry. He was my advisor, but before he was an advisor, before he ever came over, he was the finance director at the auto dealership where I came from.
Oh.
So we had a relationship.
Yeah.
He was the finance director. Then he came over. Then he went into management. And then he recruited me.
Yeah.
Actually, he hired Mark first. I sold Mark a car. It's a weird sequence of events. I sold Mark a car. And then Brian eventually recruits me over. And then I come over. I've been with the company now for 5 years.
And I would, to give these two a shout out. So we have many advisors in Dallas. But these two are in the top, I think probably certainly the top 25 of the total advisors in our firm. And that's saying a lot when you're in the size office we're in. To be in the top 25. Yeah. So they are extremely successful. What's unique about New York Life, let's just say, is that we are a non-captive system. Advisors like a Mark or Trevor, probably the things that attract people to New York Life is that they can work with any company they want to in the financial industry. So they're not tied to New York Life. They can go work with Mass Mutual or Prudential or Guardian or you name it. They're not one size fits all type planners. So that's a blessing. Anyway.
On to that point, can you talk to the audience maybe about the journey of what it looks like because you have the new org process. What's the difference between new org, established, and like then the journey to DBA and all of that?
Okay. Yeah, I would say depending on what the person's background is going to be most of the people we do hire are new to the business. They've come from and most of them are second career. I would tell you, we are not a out of the college internship, run your day. In fact, we're terrible for that. There are better companies out there that kind of bring you in every morning, go make your schedule for you, and then you check in at the end of the day. I couldn't stand doing that. I can't stand micromanagement. I would rather you micromanage me than have to micromanage you, because I just don't have any patience for it. So you have to have some discipline to manage yourself in our system, because what we're generally hiring is people who are second career, have figured it out for themselves, like what they want, what they don't want, and generally have a better control of their emotions and abilities to manage themselves. So for that fact, we are pretty rigid on the training program, but it's very flexible in how you go through it, meaning that it's very much at your pace. So we have some advisors who go through it rapidly and others that go through it at a slower pace. And that's the difference of the New York Life system. It's interesting because you look at most of the education systems, they're all everybody at the same pace, right? Everything is about like in fourth grade, well, you learn algebra. I don't know algebra in fourth grade, but maybe, yeah, it blows my mind what they're doing. But what's amazing about that philosophy, right? You think about all these kids going through fourth grade and whatever they're learning, and you take a test to demonstrate whether you've mastered or not, and you get a 74% and you can continue on, which means you missed 26% of what was in the test and you've never really mastered. And it's always the same pace for all. And therefore, you just have a varying degree of what people get out of experience. Where had they had the ability to say, you know what, you haven't mastered this, we're just going to hold you back. It's not a negative, or we're giving you more time in this. And it really has no bearing on you getting past the fourth grade or fifth grade. You get to get through it, but it will be at a different pace than maybe Trevor would. And having an education system that allows for that, allows people to become much more proficient at things before moving on.
So New York Life is like the Montessori of financial services
I
companies.
guess that would be it. I don't know how Montessori does it, but boy, that's, Is that how that works? Okay, then yes, I would have to stay.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So why did you choose to go the management route? Because when you come on, you get the option, if you're doing a certain level of production and stuff like that, to have an option to go a certain path and to go into management.
Yeah.
Why did you choose that path? And what were the reasons behind that?
I think everybody has to, it goes back to ideal.
Okay.
So it goes back to what were you built to do? What is maybe one of the greatest blessings of our organization that I am excited about. Now, this is New York Life, right? So I hate speaking like where you're just touting one thing, but this is very unique to New York Life, is that we have so many different avenues within the confines, especially of Dallas. I know that many of your listeners are from all over the United States, and we're all over. But in Dallas, it's a massive hub for New York Life. And therefore, we have lots of different career paths. I came to this business completely thinking I'd be an advisor for life. Leave me alone. Let me do my thing.
I was wondering if it was intentional.
100%. Zero focus on anything else. And I ended up taking in some foster kids and some unique situations. And ultimately had a situation where I was just presented with a different perspective about the career, which was the manager track at New York Life. I'd been with New York Life only a short time, about a year and a half. But I just at that moment felt like it would maybe fulfill me differently. And let me say it this way. I think advisors, for the majority, they come in because they say, again, I want to own it, control it, dictate. Like many people on this program right now are maybe in a situation that they didn't instigate. Like how many people projected or predicted COVID in 2019, how many were thinking, I'm sure there'll be an epidemic that will cause 30% unemployment.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, let's prepare for this.
Yeah, none of us so nobody could have predicted this. And so many found themselves out of a job because, again, someone else's decision making, someone else's, that job wasn't necessary in the moment. We could save some money, whatever it might have been. And literally, for those that really love the advisor role, they know they are in that role. They get to choose how long I work, when I work, who I work with, what I want to make, everything they get to decide on. And there's power in that.
And it's a recession-proof industry.
Recession-proof.
Actually, like Mark and I, we've been busier this year.
Yes.
We've grown more than this year. This will be our best year ever.
Yeah.
During COVID, it's crazy. It's insane. Our best year ever.
One of the terms that you've used in the past, and this has always stuck with me too, is that you could work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every minute of the day and still have more people to help because the market is insatiable.
Look, before we went to break, what led you to go into management?
Yeah, so I appreciate you asking because, again, the advisor role, we mentioned the benefits of it. And I would tell you, you mentioned another thing. You said you moved into more of an employee kind of style position, right? Because it's less independent. And that would be 100% true. I'm Mark, Trevor, a lot of our advisors can just take a month off, go live in Hawaii and not tell anybody other than leave a voicemail.
We can do that?
Many have, I can tell you that. Many do.
Chris, God, do you hear us? I hope you're listening to the show.
Yeah.
today.
Don't tell my wife.
But you can dictate. You don't have to. You have complete control of your time, autonomy, right? So no one has say over you. I couldn't really do that. I couldn't leave for a month. People would be like, what the heck? I need Mike for this, or there's people that are needing things. Yeah. So I'm a little bit much more attached, where the blessing that I found that was more of my ideal, we're all looking for the ideal. I found that being in management, I loved much more of the team aspect of it, the working with others and working with a group of individuals running for something together versus independently running, right, my own firm. It'd be like more like being on a baseball team than a wrestler. The wrestler can win the national championship regardless of how good his team is. It don't matter, right?
Yeah.
For a baseball team, you're needing everyone to pitch in. You can't do it without everyone. And I love getting others and being involved in them. The other thing I would tell you too, it was so inspiring to me is there's nothing more fun than being a factor in seeing someone find their ideal. To see a Mark or a Trevor or countless people who we've got to interject ourselves in their life and see where they are now, and they wouldn't be there had that intersection not been crossed, had we not
100%.
been a part of it.
Again, shout out to Brian Craig, because man, I'm so thankful that you didn't let go of me. Like I said no to him several times, and he didn't let go because he saw it in me. And I am truly blessed. I love what I do. I get to help people. Truly, I get to support people, and I love what I do. And if it wasn't for him not letting go of me and seeing that in me, it takes someone else to see it in you a lot of times, because we don't see it in ourselves a lot of times. We don't see our true potential, but he did. And man, shout out to Brian Craig. I appreciate you.
And you were making very good money where you were, right?
Yes.
So it's a thing where I like it. It's realizing that what was a lot of money probably isn't a lot of money.
You're like,
you have a different perspective.
To what? To what? Yeah.
It's whenever we get to that part, I remember being in college and just going, man, if ever I could just make $100,000 a year, like that would be, that's it. I would never have to make another dollar above that.
I'd like to say what made the difference with these two guys. So I network and I talk to people all the time, thousands of people each week. And when they came to Frisco Connect, and every person that does what you guys do in Dallas that was after me, but what made the difference was they took the time to help the people find what they were looking for. And I told them, and you probably remember, I wasn't easy on these guys. I wasn't going to let them in at first.
Yeah.
I told them, and it was a story taken out of the Bible. If you help those people, the reciprocation will come back to you. You reap what you sow. And they took it and they ran with it. And now it's gone crazy now.
Yeah.
How many, because maybe you could talk a little bit about this, but the management path.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people that are senior in their careers and they have great management capabilities and attributes. Can they come in and just manage?
Yeah. So are you saying for advisors, if they were to choose a different path later on?
Right. Well, somebody coming in, let's say,
hiring
there's
someone.
a path for that.
Yeah. So you're saying hiring someone instead of hiring them at 22.
Right.
Where I was hired, but
There's
let's just say they're 45 or 55 and saying, is this the ideal time? Would management even be an ideal fit? And it's 100% always the individual. So
them. Yeah.
It is, there are plenty. I am not the norm, right? Again, New York Life is not a 22-year-old hiring company. That's not our area. We don't look for college graduates. A lot of times we want them to, not that we're age discriminatory, but we want them to kind of mature and to figure out themselves what they want. And
I wouldn't have been able to do this like at 20, 22. Like, I was not mature enough for it. Yeah. No. So 100%.
I wasn't sure if you were at 27 either, but
probably.
But what I would tell you, it is a total gift to be able to enter it. We hired a gentleman in Chicago, and he was 72.
Wow.
And
I love it.
And he had the energy of a 12-year-old and was extremely successful.
Wow.
Coming in, starting anew, he was like, I think his wife was like, you cannot stay home. It isn't an option.
Uh-huh.
And
Get
it was
out
like,
here.
yeah, maybe because he was so high energy but he literally came in and was so phenomenal and just a breath. He was such a spark and tremendously successful. He's retired now, but I think, and that was like, I think he went till 82 or 80, 84, and he stayed as an advisor. He didn't go into management. But again, but 55-year-olds or whatever, is that too late to go into management in our system? It is one of those careers where our average tenure of Dallas is 27 years. So the average advisor has been in our office for 27 years. And that includes all the people who are newly established, anybody who's 3 years old, 3 years in the business. Why do we have such a long tenure? It's because most people never leave it. People come in, and we have advisors that start at 55 that are now 75, been with us 20 years.
Uh-huh.
But don't leave.
But don't leave because they have their friends as their clients.
Yeah.
Or either they were friends before they were clients or not. They become friends.
Uh-huh.
And so they're like, they don't work 5 days a week.
Yeah.
But they come in twice a week or whatever they do, and their clients will call them up, hey, I need this for my grandson, or I need this.
Because they love it.
And I'm curious about this. Okay, for our office, we've got great retention and tenure on the company, but as a whole in the industry, a lot of people know that financial services doesn't always have that high retention rate. Like there are a lot of, and I don't want to talk bad about any other companies or anything like that, but a lot of places where it's churn and burn. It's churn and burn. What's the difference? How have you made the Dallas general office so successful, and to have that kind of tenure to people are like, I'm staying this is where I'm meant to be.
Okay, so a couple of things, right? It's interesting. There is a little bit of a rap, right, where you say the industry has a bad, where you say maybe only 13% of advisors make it in this business industry-wide, and that is the number. Interestingly enough, though, when you look at those numbers, 13%, that's how many people in sales stay at a job for 3 or 4 years and leave anyway?
Yeah.
Like how many? Like I think in sales, the average retention of anybody is still in the high teens, maybe 20%, regardless of the industry, because people move. Okay.
Yeah.
But there is something unique about New York Life, and this is the last time I say the New York Life name, because again, I think the industry is so opportunistic, and we talked about that. I want to go back to it about the population here.
Yeah.
Let me make this point of what's unique about New York Life, probably on the retention side, is we're one of the only companies where it's punitive to the management if someone's hired and doesn't make it. Where in the industry, it isn't, you don't pay a financial fine. Our managers, if they hire someone and they're not right for the business, they pay a price for it. The manager does. And that's good. I want there to be you got some skin in the game,
Accountability,
that ultimately, I'm not just going to bring someone in that ultimately we just give it, what the hell? Because if it's not the right fit, and this is what it's all about, when it's not ideal for you, it's a waste of time. You could be doing something else
100%.
that would fulfill you and you'd be better at it. That's one uniqueness of New York Life. Something about Dallas, and you guys brought it up earlier, and as you were looking outside of the cars driving by.
Look at all those cars.
How many opportunities are out there? Dallas and Texas in general is the absolute worst place to be a consumer in. And what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
It just means that you have the lowest probability of an advisor calling on you because there are fewer advisors in this state in comparison to the population than any other state. So I could challenge all of you, those that are listening in, this is going to be a reflection question. And it's other than being in massive, like you've been in a lot, Foster, you've been in a lot of groups where you're around salespeople and so you have probably been hit up more than anybody on the face of the earth. Okay. So we'll remove you. But in any normal kind of person in Dallas, the teacher, the people who aren't in networking groups as a big part of their life.
The Pepsi worker.
The guy works at Pepsi, Frito-Lay, whatever. They haven't been called on, most of them ever. Meaning, you look back, people who are listening to this call, other than in the networking group, maybe you've been in recently, and probably haven't because of COVID, but you are not getting reached out to by a financial advisor. There are so few here. They're not calling you. And when we would do a meeting, and I'd have 20 people in a meeting, I'd say, how many of you have been called in the last 5 years that have lived here in Dallas at least that long? How many of you have been called by a financial advisor wanting to give you an understanding of what's out there in the market today? And I would get maybe 1 in 20 that had ever raised their hand.
Yeah, I've never been called.
No.
I wouldn't call me.
But you were in a car dealership making, I would say, relatively good money. Would you have been a good client for someone?
Oh, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Of course you would have, but no one ever reached out to you. You know why? Because there are not even close to the numbers of advisors that are necessary to support Texas. It goes back to the 20s when the state of Texas put a tariff on insurance companies and it obliterated the industry and everyone left Texas. And Texas has never recovered.
Wow.
They got rid of that tariff in the 1930s, and it ultimately,
I didn't know that.
most of the companies started coming back. So like Dallas, we're one of the largest offices in the entire country, and yet we're one of the babies. We're only about 70, 80 years old. The last office I managed was 132 years old.
Yeah.
Dang.
So a 70-year-old agency in New York Life terms is still an infant.
You're a baby.
Right. You use a word in the past and some outside of this and at the workplace, you've used a word that your description, the way I remember it was, you could work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and still have plenty of people to talk to, plenty of people to help.
Yeah.
Like you'd have more, and your word was
Oh, insatiable you're talking about?
insatiable.
Yeah, the market.
Is insatiable. So for you listeners, this may be something that you should explore, you should look at, especially if you're here in DFW.
And I would tell you, it's not always New York Life. There are so many companies here, so many great companies.
There is.
You need to, when we interview someone at New York Life, we really almost force them. Force is a hard, strong word, but really highly recommend that they interview everywhere they can, because
research.
it's always good to know what's out there and available. And I use the term all the time. Nothing is good or bad unless you have something to compare it to.
Yep.
And so ultimately being able to really do your research on that, if the industry is something that's intriguing and exciting, now where is the right fit for me? Because there is a right fit.
So
this is the right business.
So, okay, maybe you can relate to this, maybe not. I don't know. Zelda. Have you ever played Zelda?
Yes, a long time ago. I can hardly remember.
Okay.
But yes.
But you know Zelda. You know what
Yes.
Zelda is, right?
Yes.
So you start off, you're this little guy, and you're supposed to save the princess or whatever, but you have nothing. You have no sword, no shield, no magic, no nothing. You start off in the beginning of the game with nothing. That's what entrepreneurship is like. You start off, you don't know anything, you get in, and then you go a little further, and now all of a sudden you got a sword.
Yeah.
And now you go a little bit further, you got a shield, and now you got some magic. And now by the end of the game, you're like the most powerful guy in the whole game, and you're tackling bosses, right?
That's how the network started.
That's what, that's my vision for entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And that's why I love it, because every time I turn around, I get some new tool or trick or some kind of new
A sword, or
a new,
shield.
what I was talking about earlier, the follow button.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, that's a huge win for me.
Yes.
I'm like, yes,
The
that's
new helmet.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's my helmet. And so that's what it feels like to me. It's cool because you get to see that progression and that growth over time.
And you used a word, right? You've been using entrepreneur a lot.
Yeah.
Again, that obviously resonates with you. And I would tell you, that's one of the challenges I throw out to everybody who's on this thing is to write down the word employee and write down the word entrepreneur and put them with a column type format, right? At the top of the page, put a line down between them. And then what I would want you to do is write down every word that to you describes an employee. Personally, whatever that means to you, what does an employee mean to you? And then what I would do is have you write down every word that associates with entrepreneur, right? What are the words that resonate with you? And I would tell you to go with where your spirit, your heart, your soul, your instincts are, looking at that thing saying, I'm good with the employee. I love the employee part because this is what it provides. Or man, the entrepreneur is exciting to me, and it gets me, my juices going. And if that's the case, what could I create in this environment today? What have I been given this opportunity to look for, right? Is what blessing will come? I was in a men's group about a month ago, and a question was asked of me, what has been your greatest blessing of 2020? And I had to say COVID, which is obviously a terrible.
That's awful, but
yes.
it's true.
Let me cover that a bit. There has been absolute financial disasters that have been created by COVID. There has been absolute travesty in health that has been created by COVID. Those are not blessings, but those are things I can't control. But what ultimately came about because of COVID and what we could control created unbelievable gifts in my life, in the office, and not just being up. It is transformational in so many ways. What this has brought about.
Impact. Like with this show. Yeah. Like, I mean, so many people now, like a lot of people got let go. Yeah. So I got a lot more people I get to help.
Yeah.
And man.
Boom. I'm going to throw the mic for impact, right?
Impact.
That's the word, impact. That's mic drop on that.
Mike, is DFW the biggest hub or New York?
For the company
for the company, yeah.
So we have more employees in New York, of course, because that's where we're domiciled out of. But we do have, the Dallas area has the service center, which has 1,400 employees. Our office has about 550. We have the Addison Advanced Planning Group, which is about 50 attorneys and CPAs.
And Nautilus.
And Nautilus.
Yep.
Nautilus is up there. We also have in Plano, we have our central, we call it the zone office, and that's up in Plano. It Shops of Legacy. So there are many hubs of New York Life in Dallas. So it really does provide for lots of different
opportunities,
ways to go. Right?
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Well, Mike, I want to give you a very special thank you. Thank you for your support, your dedication to the agents and everything that you do for the Dallas office. Every time I go anywhere, like any of the council meetings, everybody rants and raves about you, and I'm like, it's so true. Like,
everybody knows loves Mike.
Everybody knows Mike. This is the guy that he's not going to shake your hand. He's going to give you a hug. Like, he's just that kind of guy. So we really appreciate all your support and everything that you've done for us.
I appreciate it, guys, and it's a pleasure being here. The only advice I'd give to everybody on this thing is to let as many people know that what you're looking for and what your goals and desires are. The more people that know what you actually are running for, keeping it to yourself, I'm sure you talk about that all the time, is a bad idea.
Yeah, that's not good.
So I'm sure that message is probably maybe even overplayed, but it couldn't be more true.
Thanks for listening to the Who You Know Show podcast. My name is Trevor Houston, and if you've enjoyed this episode, consider subscribing wherever you listen and leave us a positive review to help us keep the mics on in the studio. Until next week, that's the show. It's all about who you know.